Okay. Let's do the usual. Oh, it's already featured. Good. Hello, user one. Trust you to get in first again. Okay, I'm just going to share around, guys. Hope you're all doing well. It's probably going to be more of just arriving very soon. I'll just share this around, and very quickly, within a couple of minutes, we should have loads of people. Okay. I might as well share it on Twitter as well. I'll put it on the bases group. My phone just made a weird noise. I don't know what it means. Oh, there we go. I'll just tell my there we go. Okay. Alright guys, who have we got in chat? We've got Woody Black. Hello Woody, how you doing? Just the two of you so far. Fair enough guys, fair enough. Okay. I'll just liberate all the comments. I think I'll uncheck the spam folder for a couple of days. No spam comments, great. Where are we now? Okay, so I've got the comments on the notice comments here. I should have. Why is it not moving? Alright. Okay, let's just see who's in chat. Hello to Rhiannon, how you doing? Clopite, Stephen Truthseeker, Body Technician, David Splendid Isolation, Legend Real. Welcome all of you, welcome. Thanks for joining us. Thanks for joining us, guys. And Della, hi Della, how you doing? Let me do the usual and just how do I do this? Control and plus, isn't it? Oh, what's happening now? It's saying I might be buffering. All right. Oh, Corsitis. Someone called Corsitis is here, called Norman from Sheffield. Hello, how are you? Clopite. How was Blackpool's? Blackpool's very good indeed. I've actually uploaded a nice video. It's over 4 hours long, and it's in 2 parts on my channel if you want to watch it. How you doing? Am I buffering? It says YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain a smooth stream. I don't know what I'm supposed to do with that. Anyway, guys, as long as it's working alright, I'll just continue. I overfilled my teacup a little bit. Oh, how are you all? Are you all well? No buffering. Oh, good. Thanks to Rhiannon and User One and Legend Real. No buffering. That's cool. That's cool. Oh, I'll show you something that just quite amused me the other day. Oh, I don't know how many of you know Stephen Cambion. He's one of these shill hunters, Let me just show you what he posted. It's quite funny. Or is it? No, what happened was he put up something about somebody or other being fake, like he always does. He put up something about someone being fake, and I wrote a reply. Oh, I'm just waiting for the picture thing to open. I thought I'd let you show you shaders. It's quite amusing. Hello, we also have here Stephen Truthseeker saying, I've had a copyright strike. You had a copyright strike this morning. It was from an upload from like 7 years ago, a David Shaler, Jeremy Vine 9/11 interview. Oh, Stephen, you know what it's like? It's all automated, isn't it? That's why the AI the AI bot simply looks for material that's also on YouTube, and then if it sees it in your video, it'll just immediately put you up. It'll just say, I take it was just a third party strike. I mean, no one's going to. You didn't actually get a community guideline strike, did you? Rick Horden, hello. David Schultz. Greetings, Ben. Speaking of Jacob's Ladder, they're revving CERN this July the 5th, are they? I saw a news thing about CERN. Nihilist Lives Matter, good morning. Oh, they're saying it's hate speech. Oh, Stephen, really? So what did you get what happened? Did you get the video removed? Did it get removed? Did you actually get a strike on your channel? Hedella says, I need to download loads of my vids off YouTube in high quality as I've lost the originals. But how? Real player. Anyone will do. I mean, YouTube, you can't increase the quality in a download than what you get, unfortunately, on the actual player. But Real Player has a download. I use Clip Grab, but actually you should be able to download your own videos on your own channel from your channel page, from your studio, Della. Oh, here it is. Right, is it open? Yes, it's finally open. Yeah, let me just show you this. It's quite funny. Here we go. This is taking the mickey a little bit, I know, but I bet it's someone like Stephen posted this thing about somebody being, like what he's like. He's always having to go at somebody for something or other. Let's see if I can zoom in on this at all. No. Oh, I can. There we go. He's always having to go at someone saying somebody or other is fake, or someone's a shill, or someone's a drifter, etc. And everyone was going, well done. All his fans were going, well done, Stephen. Well done for calling him out or something. And this person here, J-Rod, said, why does everything have to be a fight? And I answer, because they're shills in them their hills. Superior heroes are needed to counter the disinfo menace. The credulous, naive, ufological rabble are too inferior to do it, wink. Well, guess what? Hang on. Oh, bloody hell. How do I get the next one? I'll get the next one. How would I get the next tweet? Oh, hang on. Maybe I've got to zoom out. There we go. Guess what? Liked by Stephen Cambion. Oh, dearie me. He liked it. He liked my comment. I think maybe my sarcasm's a little bit too subtle for him. Oh, yeah. So Stephen, you think you might lose your channel if you had actually you've had a community guideline strike on your channel? I'm sorry, mate. Just for that, just for David Shaler and Jeremy. Oh dear, just a David Shaler interview. What was the interview about? Was it about 9/11? Because I mean, oh my YouTube. Well, YouTube have deleted my Stefan Molyneux 9/11 video after lots of toing and froing, and but I didn't get a community guideline strike. They just deleted it. They just banned it finally. I mean, they've been banning it, and they banned it the first time, and I appealed it, and they restored it. Then they banned it again, and they actually literally changed their minds before I even noticed it had been banned. They'd reversed the decision themselves. You can see these bots. They're just AI, and of course AI is not for artificial intelligence. Is not very intelligent, and they reversed it, and then they banned it again. They banned it again, and that final ban was permanent. To be honest, it's quite glad to get it over with. Of course, the video is available on all my alt text sites. Stephen, if you're not on BitChute, Odyssey, Rumble, then get on there, mate. Oh, you had a lot deleted for hate speech. Yeah. Good evening, Donna Wellham. Good evening. That thing about CERN, I'm interested in, David. Which we'll get onto the subject matter shortly. Just what you said about CERN does interest me. Let's have a look. Is that the Large Hadron Collider is going to go live? Oh, it's the new CERN in the news. Let's have a look. CERN scientists restart hunt for answers to the mysteries of the universe. Here we go. Oh, here we go. It's the sun. The good old current bun. What's that saying? I'll just show you. Actually, I might as well just show it to you. Here we go. Not discerning. Very, very droll. New CERN Hadron Collider experiment sparks July the 5th doomsday conspiracies. Oh my god, what's really going on? Doomsday conspiracy theories are abounding. I'll do my son voice. As the new July the 5th CERN Large Hadron Collider experiment is set to create unprecedented levels of energy. And there's the European Organisation for Nuclear Research, that's CERN. It's celebrating its 10th anniversary by restarting its Large Hadron Collider after it was shut down 3 years ago. Conspiracy theories abounding. Let's skip forward a little bit. Blah-de-blah-de-blah. What Professor Brian Cox? Oh, there's a UFO story. Oh, UFO story, right. Oh my god, there's rare comets coming in. Oh my goodness. On July the 5th, there will be collisions of unprecedented energy levels. It's the centre of conspiracy theories surrounding CERN. They spelt it centre like that, which is actually the American spelling. We spell it CENTRE. People have shared their superstitions regarding the portal that will open after two high-energy particle beams are set to travel at close to the speed of light before they collide. Oh well. I did a video. I've done several videos about CERN actually. What if CERN really did open a portal or a gate to hell? This has been around for a while, hasn't it? People have talked about this for quite a long time. So David Schultz, who's announced this. So I'm not that. David. Nothing's happened yet. Now, I've done an entire video on CERN. I don't want to go into that tonight, but I've done actually a couple of videos from CERN. Yeah. Woody Black has said that the reason my 9/11 Stefan Molyneux video was banned is because Molyneux himself is banned. The thing about that, Woody, is that my other reply videos to Stefan haven't been banned. Hello, Diego Vera. How do you do? Oh, yeah, and his name is on the naughty word list, however, along with the misunderstood Austrian artist, and yeah. But the thing about it is, Nihilist, none of my other Molyneux reply videos have actually been deleted. Nihilist, you're only supposed to collide the bloody hadrons. Hey, Rhiannon, yeah, alright, what about Jacob's Ladder? How many of you seen the film? Did you watch the film as part of this watch party? I suppose you better get on to the actual subject matter we're here to discuss this evening. If so, then let me know your thoughts on Jacob's Ladder. Oh, Stephen, we're going to see you, aren't you? You're coming to Wiltshire this weekend. Yeah, it's someone. I'll go through the comments. I'll go through the comments in the. No, listen. I was watching it. Homework. The dog ate my DVD. Oh dear. TK, this live stream was a recommended video for me. Oh, and I don't subscribe. Well, TK, even if you don't subscribe to me, if you watch me regularly, you will get like a. What do you call it? Like a. 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 Like a you will get like this in your recommendations. But that's good. That's a sign that maybe my shadow ban has been lifted or eased. Rod, it's tea. I've got tea in my cup today. CERN, you saw it 30 years ago. That's when it came out. Kloppe, what's on in Wiltshire is the Basis Project conference. Oh, Stephen, you can't make it. I'm sorry, man. I'm sorry to hear that. You got problems with your health. Oh dear, Stephen. I hope you feel better soon. I really do. I really do. Yeah, someone actually talked. I'll go through the comments in the notice. Here we go. There's Gareth King, who's just simply put in something in, I think in Spanish, which is, oh, that's bloody spam. I won't bother to delete it because I'm deleting the notice soon. Rick Horden said, I watched Jacob's Ladder in 1991. Now, Rick is in chat right now on VHS, and all those so-called deleted scenes were simply in the film and not deleted at all. I have no idea why people might consider these scenes deleted, as they simply weren't. They were included in the film, absolutely. That's odd. I mean, I actually replied to him. I said not in the DVD version. I got the DVD, which is the 1 hour 53-minute feature cut, as it's designated today. And Rick says, I can appreciate that, Ben. However, as Mr. Sheridan points out in his CERN commentaries, things aren't what they used to be. Well, Rick, do you still have that VHS? Because if the Mandela effect is real, and maybe the Mandela effect is connected to CERN, because there was no Mandela effect before CERN was switched on for its, I think 2013, the Fiona Broom first came out with examples. It could be, you go back to that DVD now, you might find those deleted scenes are not in there. Apparently the deleted scenes, they were removed from the cut. It was actually, according to Wikipedia, it was actually the test audience. It was originally going to be like a 2 hour... Excuse me. It was originally going to be a 2 hour 10-minute film with that crucial deleted scene in it. And the bloody... apparently the test audience didn't like it, so that's why they cut it out, which doesn't make any sense because... as I said, that scene is actually crucial to understanding the entire thing. Matty 1981 says, sometimes I get the feeling I'm dead, living in a nightmare. Well, that's kind of what I'm discussing. We're going to discuss the nature of reality and maybe some parallels between the world of Jacob's Ladder and today's world. Oh, Not My Rabbit Hole with Terry Joyce said, great film, I will be there. Oh, thanks, Terry. I'm looking forward to you turning up. And Dark Corners says, UK says, I'll be there if possible. Thank you very much. Thanks for those comments, guys. I'll check. I think that's all of them. Let's have a look. Oh, Stephen Law's comment. That's not Dr. Stephen Law, is it? Or Professor Stephen Law, is it? That's on another video. Sorry, I'm just having the notice. Let's have a look. I'll be there, right? James. And that's it. I think that's all the comments on the notice. That's fine. That's fair enough. So, welcome to Bernie Tucker. Welcome. I'm glad. And Nihilist Lives Matters. It's depressing that it's 1990. I was 30 years old. Oh, sorry, plus 30 plus years ago. I must say, time is fleeting. Madness takes its toll. Let's do the time warp. It's easy to get these things into song lyrics, isn't it? But isn't it odd? Isn't it a very, very odd thing that I remember that time, and it doesn't seem that long ago. 1990. I remember what I was doing. I'd been in portering like a couple of years, and I was sort of like just. I was new. I was still quite new to it. I was in Delivery Suite, and I actually went into Delivery Suite that year. I actually entered Delivery Suite into Delivery Suite in 1990. Yeah, so let's go through your comments here. Welcome, Bernie Tucker. Don't worry about being late, mate. Terry Joyce is late too. Donna says, what date is the Basis conference, Ben? It's this Friday to the next Sunday. Next Friday and next Sunday. Woody Black says, I remember years ago there was a brand of LSD called Jacob's Ladder, but it buggered if I'm trying those. Now, I wouldn't try those. You might find you're on the underground train and weird creatures will appear. So I would, it might give you those kinds of visions. You don't want that. Oh, Stephen, you've done a water change in the fish tank. Oh, that's cool. Klopper, I prefer Jacob's cream crackers. Another one made that joke. Yes, I made that joke with Rhiannon when we were emailing each other. Rick says, unfortunately not, Ben. I was at a friend's house at the time. Right, so you can't get hold of the VHS. Oh, right. You could buy one, probably. It's probably a few old ones on eBay. People just desperate who haven't thrown them out. But a first edition, if the first edition VHS has a 2 hour 10 minute is 2 hour 10 minutes long, then it's not the Mandela effect, and you literally did watch something real. But Oh, Rhiannon's talking about Stephen's fish. Yeah. Diego Rivera, CERN, is it a form of Jacob's ladder? Good question, Diego, because you see, has the Large Hadron Collider had some kind of effect on our world? Have you seen my video on CERN? I think it's, rather than me repeating myself, it's worth watching it. I think I've done several, haven't I? Let's have a look. Let me just show you here. Here we go. There we are. CERN disproves ghosts. CERN progress or apocalypse. Where are we now? Mandela effect film review. Where are we going now? I think that's it. So I've made two basically. The Lucifer project was something different. Progress or apocalypse. CERN disproves ghosts. It's worth watching those videos. I also did something on her Panama radio about it. Yeah, CERN special podcast 142. I think we covered it on a couple of mindsets as well, and then they're not. All my mindsets should be available now. Oh, where's the notice? Mindset Central Archives. You might have to go to archive.org to get the mindset ones. I should put link in these notices actually. All the notices for the old mindset. I've actually preserved all the mindset shows I was in, and they're all on archive.org. But I do ask the questions like, has CERN had some kind of effect on reality? Has it changed? Has it changed the world, the universe? Because it was only after CERN. I mean, the Mandela effect is similar to the Jacob's ladder scenario in a way, because you have signs that the nature of reality is breaking down. It's changing. The nature of reality is changing, and it was unknown. The Mandela effect was not known before CERN. I mean, 2013, I think it was. Let's have a look. When did the Mandela effect start? I'll just Google it. It's the easiest thing to do. Obviously, there's that Mandela effect movie which I reviewed, which is very good actually. Oh bloody hell! I go on to Google. First hit I get false memory. Look at that. I Google Mandela effect, and that's what I get. False memory. What's an example of what is the Mandela effect? How did it start? It's a situation when a person or group of people have a false memory of an event. Fiona Broome coined the term over a decade ago, when she created a website detailing her recollections of former South African President Nelson Mandela dying in prison in the 1980s. So it seems like when you Google the Mandela effect, first things you get are just loads and loads of skeptic stuff. See, it says the Mandela effect describes a situation in which a person or group of people have a false memory of an event. That's not exactly true. It's a situation where a large number of people have the same false memory. Example of a Mandela effect. Tech target. Medical news today. What is the Mandela effect? Oh, fuck off. There we go. For misquoting famous movie lines. It's not the same as false memory, just general false memory. False memory actually does have it. It's Fiona Broome's website. She created a website. There we go. MandelaEffect.com. The original list. Let's have a look. Hope you can see this. You can, yeah. The Berenstain Bears. Let's have a look. There's all kinds of things. Charles Lindbergh, baby. I didn't know about that. Logo changes. Pages. About Fiona Broom. This is the lady who first. When did she start this? Where did she start this website? She started a website called Hollow Hill in the 90s. She's been researching paranormal stuff for 40 plus years. She's been a guest at conferences. She recalls Nelson Mandela's funeral on TV back in the late 20th century. Yeah, he died sometime in I mean, he was released from prison, I think, 1991, I believe, and was quickly elected president. Yet he was, according to this false memory, he died in 1986, I believe, in prison. And there was a massive funeral for him. There was lots of interviews, lots of documentaries and commentary and things like that. Lots of, official mourning in South Africa, things like that. When in fact he died in 2013. Since 2009, the Mandela Effect research has been a personal project. Right, 2009. When did CERN start? Let's have a look. When did the Large Hadron... I'm tempted to put Hadron Collider. When did the Large Hadron Collider start? There we go. 10th of September 2008. The previous year. Could be a coincidence. I don't know. You tell me. Let's just go for your comments again. Let's have a look. Someone's talking about fish. Oh yeah, Rhiannon and Stephen are talking about fish tanks. Is CERN a form of Jacob's Ladder? Diego Vera. Yep, that's the question, Diego Vera. TK, Jacob's Ladder was a brilliant film. It's mad stuff about reality. Very much so, yeah. It's about how space-time doesn't exist. It doesn't exist in the way we think it does. It's the character Jacob. It's only at the end you realise exactly what's been going on. As I said, there's these two plot lines that don't really cohere. But you do find out at the end that everything he's experienced since he was attacked and stabbed, and he ends up in an air ambulance. Some medical orderlies take him to the field hospital, and there, of course, he dies there. He never gets. He dies in the war. And so, according to his life, I mean, you see him 5 or 6 years after the war, working as a postman in New York City, living with this woman. He's either married or just moved in with this woman whose name is Jezebel Pipkin. That's a good name. And all kinds of weird things keep happening to him, and it's like that is essentially a protracted and a very long, detailed near-death experience. All right. John Nolan says it was weird then, but not now, Ben. Well, it's still weird, I think. I find it still weird, John. And it's meant to. This is why I reviewed it. I like weird films. I've got an idea for another watch party, actually. I hope you don't mind doing another one so soon after the last one. Well, I won't do everything, but I'll put the introduction up before I go off to my talks. It's a film I have actually reviewed on this channel before, but I want to do a live stream on it because I think it deserves to be examined in more detail. I want to do like a watch party, review and live stream. Stephen says, I identify a bit with the Tim Robbins character. The ending is very emotional. It is, isn't it? I mean, the death of the little boy, Gabe, it's very it reminds me a little bit actually of Don't Look Now. Have you ever seen Don't Look Now? About the way that's a good film. Is it called Don't Look Now? It's got Donald Sutherland in and Julie Christie. Don't Look Now, 1973 film. That's it. That's a good film. It's a very, very good film. It's a supernatural thriller. And it's just the way it has some similarities to Jacob's Ladder. I just want to go into. If the page will bloody load. Well, the page isn't loaded. Oh, here we go. You may have seen this one. It's Donald Sutherland and Julie Christie. They play a couple who. This film starts. They've got a little girl. They've got a little child, a young daughter who's about 5 years old, and she's killed. She's playing by a pond in the garden, and she just drowns. Based on Daphne du Maurier. Now, Daphne du Maurier wrote the book. Wrote the book of Birds. It was made into the Alfred Hitchcock film. But it's unusual because it has this supernatural element. But like Jacob's Ladder, it has this supernatural element to it because they encounter the ghosts of their dead daughter. It starts with the wife, but then the husband follows, and they meet these old ladies who are mediums who say they can contact the spirit of the daughter. But it's interesting because it's apparently a very, very good portrayal of grief and what it's like to lose a child. And losing a child is the most horrible thing in the world. If you've got kids, you'll know what I mean. I've had 2 children. I've lost one to death, and I sympathise. And so I can. It's very well. What I'm saying is, in both Jacob's Ladder and this film, Don't Look Now, do watch it if you've not seen it. It's very good. In both films, the grief is the way they portray the grief of the loss of a child. Is very, very well done. Is very well done indeed. It's very, very perceptive in the way it makes people feel and the way they react to it. And again, and together that is the supernatural element. A lot of psychological thrillers and explore grief, but not many of them do it in this supernatural context. It says Don't Look Now focuses on the psychology of grief and how the effect the death of a child can have on a relationship. It's a good film. It's very emotional too. It's very emotional as well. Yeah, it starts off in England, but then they move to Venice. Most of it's set in the city of Venice. Very good film indeed. Okay, where are we going? I'll go for your comments, guys. Where am I doing? Where are we going now? Okay, somebody asked me something about my hospital. What was it? Oh, here you go. Kloppite. Kloppite said, "Would you accept your old job back now at the JR?" No, I wouldn't. I've moved on from there now, Kloppite. It's I don't want to sound like an old git, but I think I'm too old to be a hospital porter now. Anyway, I mean there are older guys who are hospital porters, but it's just the I don't think I've got the physical stamina for it anymore. It's just a fact. You get to the point where you do. I mean, I have lost some of the physical stamina I had when I started importing. That's a fact. But yeah, it's there we go. Rod says, having been married for 44 years, every time I see the wife, I get flashbacks and wonder, Rod, don't tell her that, will you? Now, Rick says the video was a rental copy from a video shop. Oh, in that case, it's disappeared like that tape 178, which Stephen told me about. Stephen, you tell the story if you want. I'm not gonna steal your thunder. You tell the story of tape 178. No, Alex Lives Matter. Didn't Brian's hair look shiny and healthy? Yeah, well, if you took as many estrogen supplements as he does, probably my hair would be like that as well. Welsh Ripper, hello, how are you? Rick Gordon says, can I put the mindset shows on a playlist on this channel? No, Hapanmo TV is Hapanmo TV. But I'll tell you what, Rick, that's been done. Other people have done that. And I've put it on archive.org. Go to the Hapanmo Voice blog. There's a link there. I'll get the link for you later. Remind me. Right, TK says, Donald Hoffman, reality is an illusion, how evolution hid the truth. All right. Is that like intelligent design thing? It's very interesting. But it's something that TK has recommended. Sorrel says, sorry for asking, Ben, but how do you get in and out of bed with all those books beside your bed? That's a fair comment. I've got a gap. There's a gap between the books on the wall. I sort of slip through that. Knowledge Lives Matter says, the Mandela effect is real. Not many people remember him getting away with killing his wife because the glove didn't fit. Who killed whose wife? Not Nelson Mandela. I mean, Nelson Mandela was married to this horrible old cow. He married again, didn't he? He married, Winnie Mandela, who was this absolute gangster's moll. David says, social confabulation. What's that? David. Is that to do with the Mandela effect? No, it's not social confabulation. I think you mean that people confabulate, in other words, get errors of memory, and then they make mistakes, and they sort of fit into society for those mistakes. No, it's not that. Darren Retro, Ben, have Troy thought of running your own conference? Who's Troy? I know someone called Troy. It's an unusual name, but it could be as easy as hiring a room above a pub with a few speakers. That way Hapanmo listeners could have a meet-up and a drink. I don't know who you mean by Troy. I know someone called Troy, actually, but I don't know if you do as well. But we did that, actually. Darren, I've done that twice. I had the Roswell 70 conference, then I had the Dreaming Saucers conference. I might do another one. It'd be nice, wouldn't it? Yeah. David Schultz, could Jacob's Ladder be an MK Ultra experiment? Do you mean within the storyline or the film itself? The film itself isn't, no. But in one of the plots the plot is in the film, which never really gets resolved. And unfortunately, you see, because you find out later that the area where it's being discussed is actually just an illusion, is that the soldiers were given some kind of drug, and this drug made them so aggressive. It was supposed to make them more aggressive against the enemy, but they ended up killing each other, which is a form of mind control. Yeah. Rick Horden says, false memory, how very convenient. Yeah, I don't want to belittle the idea of false memory, Rick, because I know that several skeptics have used it to try and explain away child abuse by famous people. There's the False Memory Syndrome Foundation, which James Randi was involved with in some corollary way. Rian is... Rian says, it looks like I've got a little gap at the side. I launch myself like a high jumper. I just slip in, but there's a little space. It's about 3 feet wide. If I get more books, I'm just gonna have to. I've got some more books over there. I'm gonna have to pile them higher and higher. I have to start reading these buggers sometime. TK says, who remembers Nelson dying in prison? I don't know, but a large number of people do, which is strange. Yeah, I don't think. Obviously, I mean, I'm not as big a fan of Nelson Mandela as most people are. So, if he had, I wouldn't have cared. Jake Yorkman, hello Ben. Hope you're well, my friend. I am. Thank you, Jake. How are you? Nihilist Lives Matter says, I remember for some reason that was actually behind the filter. I remember the Spice Girls visiting Mandela. I'm pretty sure he banged Scary on the presidential day. If so, then unless other people remember that, then I think it is a Mandela effect. And it is actually probably a false memory. Stephen says, I was meant to share part part of my life with an important person, have important children with that person. That's a reality will never happen now. I'm sorry, Stephen, I am. I'm sorry, mate, I really am. My life never didn't work out the way I expected it to, I know. TK says, when I get stoned and play guitar, I think I became Jimi Hendrix, and he died before I was born, so do you think I might be him? Well, if you like getting stoned and playing the guitar, memories, some do move in reincarnation, they move from one vessel to another, so who knows, yeah. If you start playing your guitar with your teeth or your toenails, then I think it's a clear case, mate. You are Jimmy, come back. Diego Rivera's quoting that Meister Eckhart phrase. Yeah, the only thing that burns in hell is the part of you that won't let go of your life. It's a good one, isn't it? Yeah. That's a good quote, isn't it, Diego Rivera? Tommy Time Television is here and says, what are we talking about? Oh, this is the Jacob's Party, the Jacob's Ladder Watch Party live stream, Tommy. Thanks for joining us. Louis quotes Meister Eckhart. That's a symbolic thing, isn't it? It's a sign, because that's exactly, he's quoting. You see, there's lots of hints that he's an angel and that Michael is an angel too. They behave like it. Yeah. Tommy says Jacob's Ladder is in Cheddar Gorge. Is it? I've been to Cheddar Gorge. It's lovely. Ariana's trying to cheer Stephen up. You could have children when you're 99. Yeah. Exactly. Men are not like women. Men can actually become fathers. There's no real limit to when a man can become a father. As long as if you look after yourself and keep healthy, there's no reason why you can't father a child when you're very old. But it's not like men don't have like a menopause. That's right. So you never know, Stephen. You never know, mate. Oh, I'm sorry you're having these paranormal occult attacks, mate. I really am. Stephen says Mandela was a Knights Hospitaller. Oh, right. Martin Taylor. Hello, Martin. How are you? Ben, I'm late to show, but I love the Blackpool weekend. Oh, great. You were there. Fantastic. You met Maria Wheatley, Andrew Collins, Hugh Newman, JJ and Jim Vieira and Rudolf Steiner at Rudolf Steiner House a few years back. Oh, right. Origins Conference. Right. Have we met? Did I meet you, Martin? Because I've been to Steiner House. I went to a conference. I went to 2 conferences at Steiner House. The first one was, I can't remember what one of them. One of them was the consciousness beyond the individual. There was Anthony Peake and Deborah Hyde, doing the skeptic side, and a couple of other people. That was at Steiner House. Oh, was it the Swedenborg House? Oh God, that's I'm just gonna remember these things. Oh dear. Delafran brought up Ghostwatch. Oh man, if you want to watch Ghostwatch, is fantastic. I watched it. I didn't realise it wasn't real when I watched it, and I didn't. I think you're supposed to think you're supposed to know it was real, but I was like War. It's been described as being like War of the Worlds. The other thing is, it seems, in Steve's voice, Mandela effect, absolute rubbish. Yeah. I hear Steve mumbling is thinking of leaving me alone, and I'll be sad if that happens. I will have to, honestly, I'll miss him if he does. I'll have to start making reply videos to him so he'll be tempted back. Oh, Darren Retro's the Marmalade Mandela effect. Yeah, Robinsons. Are we now? Bernie Tucker. I've learnt far more about the subjects watching your videos. You are brilliant at what you do. Many thanks, sir. You're very welcome, Bernie. You're very welcome. I'm glad you enjoy it, mate. I'm glad I've helped you learn things there. Neil, hello, Neil. Neil Peel of the Paranormal Peep Show. Sorry, was editing our Paranormal Peep Show. So, oh, right. Well, that has to come first, Neil, doesn't it? Yes. Rod says, have you ever seen a ghost? Yeah, I've seen things I think, I really have, Rod, yes. Stephen, Maria Wheatley has always been cool. She is, isn't she? Yes, she's fascinating. Now, Stephen Mumbling is thinking of leaving me alone, yeah. But he won't. I don't think he will, especially when I make another reply video to him. He won't. Martin Taylor, Ben, I'm very good friends with Laird Scranton, so I've met many in alternative realities. Right, oh right, Laird Scranton. Well, who is he? I know the name, I just can't think. Rhiannon says, Ben and Steve, the bromance which dare not speak his name. Yeah. That's one I don't get. There's one bit I don't. There's a lot I don't get about Jacob's Ladder. One is that as I said, there's an alternative timeline, isn't there? There's the real timeline, which is when it starts, you think the timeline is he marries Sarah, his first wife. Goes to Vietnam. The kid Gabe gets killed. He goes to Vietnam. He comes back from Vietnam, splits up with Sarah. Goes to live with Jezebel, and then the rest of the film takes place, and that's what you think happens. But of course, what really happens is the real timeline is he marries his first wife Sarah. Gabe dies. Then he goes to Vietnam, and of course that's when this happens. And whether he actually got drugged by the army, we don't know. I mean, that's left up. We know that the soldiers started going into convulsions and things like that, and they started acting weird. But it's never resolved because Jacob is then attacked by an unseen assailant, whom you later find out is one of his friends, which does indicate that he was this. You know, if the Americans start killing each other, well, why is that? It sounds like it must be the influence of some kind of drug that makes them go crazy. Thing is, like in the Vietnam War, some Americans did fight amongst themselves. I mean, it was so disorganized. There were several incidents where they did fight each other. And then as he's dying, he has this near-death experience, which he thinks is real. In the same way, it's sometimes when people are having dreams, they think they're real. Stephen said he was happier with Sarah. Yeah, I think I prefer Sarah to Jezzy. Jessie's better looking, but she's a psycho bitch, isn't she? Even before she goes all black-eyed and turns into a monster. I wouldn't have noticed the difference, quite frankly. Yeah. Rhiannon says, do you think Jacob's Ladder near-death experience may have been about him seeing the life he would have had if he hadn't been killed in the war? Yeah. I think that's it. I mean, it's a product of his imagination. It is something he's essentially conjured up. For example, you find out from his second, when he flashes back and he thinks he's with his wife, his first wife, before Jezzy, that he says, I was having a dream, I was living with Jezebel, that lady at the post office. This is before he becomes a postman. He's some kind of academic back then. That post lady, I dreamed I was living with her. And of course, this is a woman he knew beforehand, and he thought she was attractive. And then he has a dream, what he thinks is a dream, that he's actually living with her, and she's like his second wife. And then he thinks he wakes up in his old world before Vietnam. Yeah. Stephen Truseeker says Agent Orange. Right, Agent Orange has that's an interesting point, because Agent Orange is a real life war scandal from Vietnam, and its effects are still being felt today. The damage it was done is still being felt today. It's a herbicide and defoliant chemical used by the US military as its herbicide warfare campaign from 1961 to 71. And it was created by Monsanto. It has caused many health problems for many individuals who were exposed and their offspring. It seems to have had effects on the gametes, the sex cells, and so it's become like a multi-generational thing. It's bloody awful. Up to 4 million people in Vietnam were exposed to this, and up to 3 million people have suffered illness because of Agent Orange. Red Cross Vietnam estimates up to 1 million people are disabled or have health problems as a result of exposure to Agent Orange. The US government described these figures as unreliable. However, the US military veterans have actually experienced the very same symptoms in the same proportions. Agent Orange caused enormous environmental damage. Over 11,000 square miles of forest was defoliated. Defoliated, irradiated tree cover and seeding forest stock, mainly reforestation, is difficult in numerous areas. The use of Agent Orange in Vietnam has resulted in numerous legal actions. By both US veterans and Vietnamese civilians and veterans. Now, where's health effects? Right, we are. Oh, there's a horrible picture of a guy with terrible dermatitis. I don't know if you want to see it. It's a pretty. You might not want to see this. There's a man here with what looks like really bad dermatitis over his entire body. I don't think I'll show it to you, actually. You can look it up. His name is Major Tu Dirk Phang, and he literally has... he's sitting there and you can see his arms and head, and it's covered in dermatitis. There's a man here with birth deformities. He's got little short arms like a thalidomide. And there's a whole load of handicapped children as a result of, it caused birth defects in kids. And there's another lady here who has a son who can't. His legs are all bent and he can't walk properly because of this Agent Orange. But what about the effects it has in terms of psychology? I don't know. US veterans were told not to worry and that the chemical was harmless. But when they returned home, they began to suffer from ill effects. Their wives having miscarriages or children born with birth defects. This is in America. They were exposed to the same thing. Just a coincidence. Veterans began to file claims in 1977. Yeah. Oh dear. Well, it's bloody an awful thing, isn't it? Sociological impact. Alright. There's nothing here about psychological impact, guys. Stephen, there's nothing here about... there's nothing about the Agent Orange could have caused what happened to the soldiers. Yeah. TK says the drug was to make them into super soldiers. Yeah, well, not in the sort of like in the sense we understand it, but it would have made them much more aggressive. That's the idea. Malaya Grimm, good evening. How are you? Stephen Truseeker, what about the girlfriend having it off with a reptile on the dance floor? Oh, that's horrible. That's really gross. That's at the house party. Yeah, I mean, whether it's a reptile or not, I don't know what it is. I mean, you only see small parts of these monsters. She's flapping wings. You see tentacles rubbing all over her, and she's moaning, finding the whole thing very erotic. And then you see something scratching her skin, and it draws blood. As I said, it's more scary. The fact that you don't see the whole thing, I think, makes it more frightening. A good horror writer and producer and director knows what to show people and what not to show people. Scaring people in films is actually, you must know, it's about knowing about psychology rather than just gruesome special effects. It's like that film The Blob. I mean, the second one. I've never seen the original Blob. It's very there's lots of graphic violence and horrible things, but it's just not scary. It's just funny. Yeah. TK says all the soldiers got the flashbacks. Well, this is the weird thing though, TK, because those guys weren't real, were they? I mean, they were real. They lived. Jacob knew them just before he was fighting with them in Vietnam. But then, in the scenes that follow, what happened to him? That was all That was all in his imagination. They were just figments of his imagination. I mean, when I have dreams, my dreams sometimes feature real people that I know. Funnily enough, they often act out of character. When people I know are in dreams, they act very differently to how I know them. What I don't, the bit I don't get, is that the scene where Jacob's on the phone to them, right? And they talk. They say, well, they're on the phone to that guy Francis, the one of the guys, and Francis is saying, look, we're not going to go ahead with this lawsuit, and it's very obvious that they've been scared off, like Jacob was. They probably got kidnapped by those guys in the car, like Jacob was. And then when he puts the phone down, he looks around. You see the others all sitting there, and that is a location where Jacob is unseen. He's not in that scene. So, what's that then? If it's all not real, what's that shot doing in there? If it's all about Jacob's imagination, every single shot should have Jacob in it. And Stephen, yeah, they all have it. They all have this same thing. But then, of course, this is all Jacob's imagination. Stephen says lots of horns and tails in the film. Black eyes sounds like David Icke research. Yeah, the black eyes. It's actually Jezzy, his second wife, who has these black eyes. She goes, "Anybody home?" And she turns into one of those monsters. And of course, she appears later in the hospital scene, doesn't she? TK, so the guys who killed each other while on the drugs during the experiment, well, their families were told they died in battle. I expect that if something like that happened for real, I expect that's the story you'd get, yeah. Welsh Ripper says the mother of all conspiracy theorists, Max Spears, believed his computer was wiped. Poor old Max, yeah. After British conspiracy theorist Max Spears died in Poland in July 2016, so-called super soldier. Who are you quoting from, Welsh Ripper? That sounds like just the BBC or someone. Oh God, there was that awful bloody documentary. I mean, that terrible documentary they did. Miles was in that. I mean, Miles knows what I think about that. Miles knows I've told him many times he shouldn't get involved with these things. But David said, Ben, did they ever get to the bottom of the Havana US Embassy sonic neurological attack on the staff there? I don't know, David. Barry Trower mentioned that, I think. There was something similar happened in the Cold War in the US Embassy in Moscow, I think. There was they had some kind of weapon was directed at the embassy there, and this was like in the 60s or something, and they all got sick. TK says there wasn't any imagination involved. It was an experiment. TK, you've seen the film. You know what happens. You know that really what actually happens from the beginning and the end of the film is simply Jacob. The battle breaks out. Jacob is then attacked. Is it then attacked by this guy? He's basically stabbed. This guy bayonets him basically, and it turns out it's one of his friends. And then he's rescued and taken to the field hospital where he dies. So everything else, everything else is the flashback or the flash forward, or it's his imagination, and it's not real. So it's all his imagination, apart from everything's his imagination, apart from what you think of flashbacks. So it's a really interesting twist. Agent Orange was made by Monsanto, Woody Black. Yeah, of course. David says, didn't Max Spears start coughing up black goo? I've heard David, I've heard stories like that. I don't want to say too much about it. I don't know all the details, but I had heard that. I've heard many different conflicting reports on Max's final days, and it's a terrible thing. TK says the US Army did an experiment which went wrong, and the guys in the experiment realised through weird flashbacks. But we don't know how many of them survived the war, TK, and we don't know. And of course, that doesn't take part. That's not what's a part of the film. Everything in the film is Jacob's imagination. Peaceful Warrior, hey, how you doing? Salute. Still getting round to emailing you about the UFO in Iraq. Oh yeah, I remember that. I haven't forgotten, bud. Please give me time. Top of my list, sir. Yeah, sure, Peaceful Warrior, no problem, mate. Take your time, but it's interesting. Because if you could find that, if you could find, especially if you can get the other witnesses to say something, that'd be very interesting. Because what you described sounds a bit like the Pentarch object. Sounds very similar. You've watched the film millions of times, me too, and they did kill each other. I mean, you do see that it was actually one of Jacob's friends that kills him. So the story about the drugs was true. The thing about it is, the reveal about the drugs can't be real. I mean, maybe in the world of that film, the other guys, you can speculate about this. The other guys, if they survived that particular battle and they went home, they might have then been in a situation like Jacob was. They may well have had some kind of flashbacks and then done something about it. Neil Peel says, was Jacob's Ladder ever put forward for a sequel? Not that I know of, Neil. I mean, there is a sequel, says David. Oh, there's a remake. There's a remake. It's, yes, rated low. I'm not surprised. Let's have a look at it. Jacob's Ladder. Yeah, Jacob's Ladder 2019. There's a remake in 2019. Here it is. 2019 film. I'll show it to you. Now, even by this is it. It's 2019, directed by David Rosenthal, and there's Jeff Bueller, Sarah Throp. It's a remake of the 1990 film, and it's crap. It's shit. It's this is it here. This is the poster. It's a very even by the standards of remakes, this is a really bad one. There's no real. I mean, to be honest, I haven't watched all of it. I gave up after about half an hour. I just thought there's the scene on the underground train is just like repeated. It's repeated almost shot for shot in this film, in this travesty of a remake. But it's not done half as well. It's about a million times less scary and atmospheric. It's symptomatic of Hollywood right now. Hollywood is going through a terrible writer's block at the moment, where it's losing all its creative power. And as a result, it's just, I mean, some people have blamed it on the wokeness, some people have blamed it on other things. Some people have said it's to do with the scandals, the child abuse scandals and things like that, and the corruption scandals. Whatever the cause of it, it's really, Hollywood has lost its creative power. And as a result, they're now doing what if writers try to just write through their writer's block and oblivious, they just produce rubbish, they just produce awful things. They can't come up with any new ideas, so they're just producing very substandard sequels and remakes which really don't do the original any credit. Steven says here, remakes stink. They do. They almost all do. There's a few exceptions. King Kong. Peter Jackson's King Kong was an excellent remake. It's one of the few that was, if anything, better than the original. It didn't take anything from the original. It didn't try to steal the original. Woody Black says the remake of The Fly, the David Cronenberg remake. I've never seen the original, Woody, so I can't tell you. I know it was originally in the 50s, wasn't there? The original story. I've just seen the 1980s one with what's his name? The guy with the weird smile, the ugly bloke. I've forgotten his name. Jeff Goldblum. Yeah, that's the only one I've seen. So the remake, it's fair enough. I mean, it's fair enough to watch the remake. If you've watched don't watch it before you've watched the original. For goodness' sake. At some point, I might finish the remake just out of curiosity if I'm really bored. David says the 70s Invasion of the Body Snatchers remake was good. Right, that wasn't bad actually. Yeah, that had Donald Sutherland in it as well. Yeah, the King Kong's excellent. That was fantastic. The original was great too. I mean, the original, 1932, I think it came out. Martin Taylor, what about A Clockwork Orange? for a watch party. Martin, I'm willing to take. I've already planned the next watch party. I'll be posting the introduction actually before I go off to my talks. But that's a good idea. Remind me about that, because the Jacob's Ladder was actually a suggestion from a viewer. Diego says Jacob wrestling the angel is a famous story. Does it relate to the film? No, that was actually I think that was a guy called Israel, wasn't it? It was in the it's a Bible story. And because Israel means the one who fights God. I can't remember the details. Bernie says, I would love to see Professor Cox in your videos making your dragon juice. That's all he's good for. I wouldn't drink anything he made. I'd probably get estrogen poisoning, because anything he touched would probably go through his skin. It would give me nice silky black hair, but it would make me, give me a silly high voice like that, and it would probably make me really arrogant as well, and full of myself like him. TK says Michael's story triggers the vision of Jacob's wounding in Vietnam, which shows this attack as a fellow American soldier. Yeah. Michael is portrayed as an angel as well. There's light behind him. That's with Louis. Louis and Michael are both portrayed and indeed Jacob jokes with Louis, says you look like a big cherub, and you get the feeling that Louis knows more than he's saying. Michael, of course, cures Jacob of the drug. You think he's cured him of the drug, but what he's actually done is he's cured him of his trouble. This that he doesn't want to die. He wants to be alive, and he's not ready to move on into the spirit world. Maybe he feels he's got more to do. Maybe he feels because he leaves behind his wife and his other 2 sons who are young when he gets killed. He gets killed in 1971, and his sons are still young. They're younger than they appear later on in the film. Minority Report. Stephen recommends Minority Report. That's a good one, isn't it? Yeah, that's a good film. That is a very interesting film in terms of. I think it's a very political film. That it's about civil rights and things like that, and about. It's interesting from the point of view of of the law. Yeah. David says that David knows the Bible. Israel means he who wrestled with God. Jacob's name was changed to Israel because he wrestled all night with the Lord. He wouldn't let him go. Yeah. Right, that's it, David. Thanks for reminding me, mate. Thanks for reminding me. So I have read the Bible. I thought it was quite. I liked reading the Bible. I don't read it all the time, but I have read it. I have read it all the way through. Yeah. The thing about you see, the near-death experiences which I'm familiar with. This is why I didn't get it straight away. Oh, Peaceful Warrior says they live. I've already done that one, Peaceful Warrior. Yeah, we've done a watch party on that. You'll find it on the channel, all 3 parts. I was just thinking about near-death experiences. Like, I've been watching Peter Fenwick. Peter Fenwick has a YouTube channel now. Well, I found out his grandson actually set it up for him, and I do sub to him. He doesn't do much with it. I mean, he hasn't done anything for a while. Where is it here? Here we go. But it gives him the basic here, and of course he's written some books as well. Dr. Peter Fenwick, yeah. Let me just show it to you. He's pretty old now, Dr. Peter Fenwick. There he is. I've clicked the bell. I've subscribed to him. Oh, he's got a new one. 2 months ago he did this one called Mindful Meditation. Hope you can see that, guys. There we go. I haven't watched all of them, as you can see, but he's got a whole series on NDEs. This is something he's only done in the last couple of years, and his grandson set it up. That's his grandson there, and there's a cat called Casper. There's a cat that always keeps jumping on him. Here we go. That's his grandson. Here we go.
Welcome back. And I've got a surprise for you today.
Yeah, that's his grandson who set up the YouTube channel. And Casper is the cat.
I have my grandson with us.
Where is he?
His name is Mandela, which is a Welsh name, but I call him the Lion because it's easier. And
there's a cat that's always crawling over their studio area as well. But he has loads of stuff on NDEs. There's a whole list of NDE, which is very interesting, of course. You know, I'm very interested in this. NDE Part 1, Part 2, questions and answers 4, 5, 6. Final video, final NDE. Yeah, and he does loads. That's his wife, who's with him there.
I don't want to die.
I can't do these. I can't give £2 to everyone. I'll have no money left. There we go. His wife's in this. Where is she? Oh, this is about. He does death. There she is. That's his wife.
It's certainly. I'm certainly not frightened of dying.
And he does like deathbed visions and things like that. He covers all these kinds of mysteries. He covers. He's very, very good. I've not read any of his books, but I've watched loads of his lectures. And he's on this brilliant. What's that TV show called? Hang on, Testing God. That's it. If you've not seen this, I'll probably get a third-party strike for showing you this. Trusting God. Sorry, Testing God. David Malone. These David Malone documentaries are outstandingly good. Craig, there he is. You can see him there.
Something that we could recognise as intelligence.
That's Andy Clark.
Then it would have a strong tendency to believe.
You see, he looks young there because this is like from about 1990 something.
In God.
There he is. Where is he? There he is.
And you have to keep your mind open.
There he is.
I like that.
Illusory bound.
I could never have dreamed up that experience. Yes, your mind could create something, yeah, but I'm just one of thousands and thousands of people in the world in this present time and through time that's had this experience and relates.
I really recommend this if you've not seen it before. Testing God by David Malone. I got the DVDs of them, and there's a couple of others. He did another series called Soul Searching, and there's another one called Dangerous Knowledge, and they're fantastic.
How did I come up with the same story when I'd never read it before or heard anything of it before? How does one quantify that?
Peter Fenwick knows there is no objective proof for what Heather has been through. But he believes it would be unscientific to ignore the fact that thousands of unconnected people from different cultures have had the same experience.
You come back to the fact that these experiences are part of the range of phenomena that you can experience. You have to look at these experiences then and see what value you're going to put on them. And the value you're going to put on them...
You see, he's younger there. This is from I think it was 1990 something. I think it was from the early 90s.
Going to be two types. They're going to be cultural. In other words, our science says they don't exist, so they must be madness. Or they could be defining other aspects of reality. And you have to keep your mind open. I like that view anyway. I'm a wider view person rather than a narrow view person.
There's a bit more. There's more of him here. Hang on, where is it?
You...
But on what they feel is a direct and undeniable experience than a comforting story.
So do you guys want to watch more of these things? I mean, do you mind me showing you these things? I'll just go through these comments here. Yeah, Peaceful Warrior, no problem, mate. You can check it out on the channel. It's really, really good. Stephen, what's that film with Gene Hackman and Will Smith? Enemy of the State. It's very good. Peaceful Warrior says, Proof of Heaven, worth a look. Neurosurgeons. Yeah, that's Eben Alexander, Peaceful Warrior. That was quite good. I thought that was quite... I think I've seen that... I saw something with Eben Alexander, yeah. David says, and of course you know Jacob's ladder comes from the biblical account of Jacob, and what he saw in his dream with the ladder between heaven and earth, with angels going up and down it. Yeah, it's pretty open to interpretation, but yeah, it's an interesting thing, yeah. Do aliens relate to the paranormal? I think so, yeah. Yeah, let me just show you, let's just show you some more of these. Do you want to see a bit more of this? Because there's another little segment with Peter Fenwick that's actually earlier on. I'll just show this to you.
But there are people whose faith in something beyond death is based not on religious teachings, but on what they feel is a direct and undeniable experience of God.
When they opened me up, I'd actually had a massive hemorrhage. I was actually pregnant. I had a pregnancy in the fallopian tube, and the tube had ruptured, and I was hemorrhaging internally from this incident. I found myself standing beside the bed, but it wasn't me standing beside the bed, it was a shadow of me, I suppose you'd say, I don't know. And you then realise, oh, that's a drip stand, and oh yes, there's a tube and there's some blood in it, and you realise it's attached to you, and you realise then it's you in the bed. So I was a bit confused, and I could hear somebody saying, you know, don't be too concerned, just come with me, but I didn't see anybody. And there was this really, really the most amazing bright light. You are brought to meet this, the most amazing being. Oh boy. Power, love, compassion, absolutely profound being. And suddenly you think, well, if this is heaven and I'm in front of who I think I am, I'm not really worthy to be here. It's just this most overwhelming feeling of compassion and love. I think that is the thing that stays with you the strongest.
Conventional science says experiences like Heather's are a sort of illusion, which must occur either when the person is losing consciousness or regaining it, but definitely not when clinically dead. Peter Fenwick is a neuropsychiatrist who has been studying near-death experiences for over 20 years. He thinks there are problems with this conventional explanation.
Well, we know a lot of what happens when the heart stops. And what happens is the brain rhythms are normal for about 6 seconds, and then they rapidly decay, and you get a flat EEG. Now, flat EEG means that all those cortical structures which create our world for us are not working. So if it doesn't occur as you're going down, and if it doesn't occur while you're in the depth of the experience, because it can't in our science, then it has to occur as you're recovering. Now, if you deprive the brain of oxygen and you recover from it, then your thinking is all over the place. But the thing about the near-death experience is it's highly lucid and it's very clear. So it can't be in the confusional arousal. But so when did it occur?
But no matter that we still do not understand when or why they occur, no matter how sincere people are when they say something real happened to them, mainstream science still insists the experience of God has no external reality.
There's a lot of psychological research about this just showing how we make things up, but we don't know we're making them up. We find ourselves doing something, and we tell a story to make sense of it, and we honestly believe our own story. And the thought is that there's a bit of your brain, and its job is to make sense of things. A bit like in a big firm or a government, you have a public relations department.
He did a debate with Jordan Peterson, I remember lately, Dr. Jordan Peterson. He's a lot older now, but I recognise him, Andy Clark.
Whose job is to make sense of what the firm does. Unfortunately, no one in the firm tells them anything, really, so they have very limited information to go on, but they have to tell a good story.
That's really the kind of end of the interesting bit there. But there's been an update on the whole thing, the whole situation. Oh, I've got more comments here. That's great. What I got here now? Right. Stephen says, "Has anyone asked for a sign? I did, and something happened." Is that? Well, you can tell the story, mate. You tell the story, but we have talked about this privately. Rod says, "Much more, please." Oh, right. Do you mean Testing God? Oh, Testing God. Like I say, all 3 episodes are on YouTube. It's beautiful as well. It's poetic. It's a very poetically filmed series with a lovely score. And it's very sort of. It's the guy who did it. It's almost cinematic the way he, as you saw a bit of it there. Yeah, so please do check that out. And also, Soul Searching is a good one. That is I think on Vimeo. That is on Vimeo. There we go. TK says that's just one interpretation. Others suggest that most of the movie never happened at all. His memories of Vietnam aren't flashbacks, but the present moment. Well, that's my interpretation, TK. But of course, at the end, he's dead. That's the point. Oh, thanks for telling us the story, Stephen. Yeah, thank you. Leon says, one of my favourite bands is called Anathema, have a song called Presence, which is in which a man speaks about the afterlife. It's very much like Peter Fenwick. Oh, right, great song. Thanks, Leon. Peaceful Warrior says, I'd be more than happy to do a live Q&A. We'll email you. Thanks, Peaceful Warrior. Yeah, I mean, if the other witnesses are willing to speak out, we can. I'll speak to them. I can speak to you on Skype or something. That'd be great, because what you describe sounds very interesting. What you describe. I would like to, if possible, I'd like to get your take on it first. Without, if you can do that without talking to the other witnesses. It's just if the people do this independently, it's better, because for the same reason, as the kids at Aerial School really should have been interviewed independently by Cynthia Hind, as I said in the Aerial Phenomenon live stream. So I'd rather sort of email you privately first, if that's okay. Is Soul Searching still? I'm just going to check and see if Soul Searching is still on Vimeo. Here we are. Because it's that's another good one. That's like his later he did. Come on, what's up with my browser? Come on, here we are. Soul Searching David Malone. Here we go. Soul Searching David Malone. It wasn't. Oh, it is good. It's on Vimeo. Brilliant. At least part 1 is. I think the channel also has part 2. Let's have a look. It used to have both parts on. I'll show you it actually. I'll just show you. There's part 1. I know this lady actually, and there's part 2. As you can see, I know this lady because look, what's the first? She uploaded that first. Who's that handsome fella? That's how she got in touch with me, and we were talking about Soul Searching. She says, "Oh, I've got that. I'll upload it." That's the only copy, I believe, of this particular David Malone part follow-up. All right, guys. So there's been an update. There's been a bit of an update. Thanks, Peaceful Warrior. Where are we now? Martin Taylor. Not only is the world stranger than we suppose, it's stranger than we can suppose. Yes, JBS Haldane. It's perfectly possible. That's right. Yeah. Stephen says this subject could include people remembering their past lives. It does. Apparently, some NDs do include past life memories. Yeah. All right, Neil Peel. This is interesting. Back in 1995, I took part in ESP experiments under the supervision of Dr. Peter Fenwick. Never actually met him, but the scientist I was working with worked under Fenwick. Oh, really, Neil? Blimey, that's one of those moments you go, wow. He gets everywhere, doesn't he? David Schultz. Life is only a dream, and we are the imagination of ourselves. Bill Hicks. Yeah. That was his positive acid story, wasn't it? Yeah. Why don't we have a positive acid story for a change? Yeah. A news story on acid. Yeah. About LSD. He was a big LSD user, that guy, yeah, Bill Hicks. I think he understood, you can see it in his jokes, he understood a lot of spiritual things. So there's an update. There's been an update. I was actually desperately searching for this on my phone when you were watching that. I'll just have to find it. There's been an update. See, there's been an update since Dr. Peter Fenwick said what he did his little speech. So that was a long time ago. There has been research on NDEs done since then, and there's been a new bit. And I actually wrote about this on Hapanmo Voice. Now I know none of you actually read Hapanmo Voice, or very few of you. And I wish more of you would, because I'm only getting like about 20 hits on each article. But you get all kinds of this. Cashless Street. Well, that's my latest article there. So I'm just plugging my blog now. Happy UFO Day, Probe Report with Neil, Roe versus Wade. Happy Referendum Day. There's some other stuff here, stuff about Lord of the Rings. Let's go in. UFO Truth Magazine, Basis Conference. Where is it? I did a video about that. As you know, I adapted this article into a video. Outer Limits Magazine Angel. Where is it? I'm only scrolling down to try and get to advertise my blog, which doesn't happen much. Here's my mindset stuff. Can you see this? Hopefully you can. Yeah. All the mindset stuff is on here on this page on archive.org. That's the live streams. Now, there we see Mindset Podcast second series. Can you see that? Mindset Podcast first series. All right, so it's all on there. There's about 150 plus episodes of Mindset Podcast on these two articles, on these 2 pages. There we go. See, I put loads of stuff on Hapanmo Voice, and some of it I don't. There's Kev Baker. I archive some of Kev Baker's shows as well. Now, and there's the Mindset Podcast second series. Hang on, I am going to use the search now. Hang on, here we go. Because NDE. Return from the Dead. That's an interesting documentary. It's a skeptic one, but I did find I could. Here we are. NDE caught on camera. This is something, isn't it? This is amazing, isn't it? One of the things that have up till now been totally subjective experience is the near-death experience, NDE. This is this is something that Fenwick was saying. You can't prove something and he says that you get a completely flat EEG. So when your heart stops, you get a flat EEG very quickly. And then the brain is essentially inactive until if you're lucky enough, your heart will be restarted, and then you can go back to life. And then, but in the arousal state, you're very confused because your brain essentially has been battered by hypoxia, so you're very confused. But this has just changed. According to some neuroscientists from Vancouver, Canada, and Tartu, Estonia, this breakthrough happened quite by chance. They were carrying out an electroencephalogram on a patient who suffered from epilepsy. They had the 87-year-old male fitted up to the EEG with an array of electrodes on his head, measuring his brainwaves. However, during this routine procedure, the patient suffered a heart attack and died. Leaving aside the tragedy, this gave the doctors a unique opportunity, one that makes the story sound like a real-life version of Flatliners. Yeah, Flatliners is a great. That's another remake that was actually not too bad, but the original, not as good as the original. The man's brain continued to function for 30 seconds after a cardiac arrest, and in those seconds it went through the same activity it would when dreaming or recalling memories. This matches some of the rat studies that were done a year earlier, and I actually did that. I covered that as well on this blog. On a practical clinical level, it raises questions about when death actually occurs because it's becoming increasingly fuzzy. That has implications for issues like organ donation. The lead publisher of the study, Dr. Ajmal Zamar, said, "This was actually totally by chance. We did not plan to do this. Experiment or record these signals. This could possibly be that recall the last memories that we experience in life and then replay through our brains in the last second before we die. If we were to jump to the philosophical realm, I would speculate that if the brain did a flashback, it would probably like to remind you of the good things rather than the bad things. I think there's something mystical and spiritual about this whole near-death experience. And I said it, that's ironic, of course, because the skeptics will interpret this discovery as evidence they've been looking for, proof that the NDE can be explained in purely materialistic terms. A wanton chemical orgy that is succeeded immediately by total and permanent annihilation. Whether this is true or not will depend on further studies and whether the human brain is capable of the feats necessary in terms of organised thought that could reproduce the entire NDE phenomenon. Dr. Zemar has tried a few times since his impromptu data, which he collected a while ago in 2016, but has so far not reproduced them. Well, if you have to kill people to reproduce them, you are in a flatliner situation. Of course, as I said, the skeptics will jump on this. They will. And indeed, I don't actually check. I don't watch as much of the skeptic stuff as I used to. I just don't have time. But there is a kind of like a. I think Fenwick hasn't actually commented on this. I put a comment on one of his videos asking what he thought about Dr. Zemar's research. But he did comment on the rat studies, which again seem to produce the same results. They produce that the brain does actually go through a spurt of activity when in early stages of hypoxia. What it doesn't do though is it doesn't. You see, your brain, does the activity actually produce any kind of organised thought? Because see, your brain needs to function in a certain way to produce an organised thought. For example, when you're dreaming, when you're in bed at night dreaming, your brain is very active. And indeed, dreams can be if you have a sleep study, the scientists doing the sleep study will know when you're dreaming and when you're not. They can't read, you don't know what you're dreaming about yet, but I'm sure they're working on that. God knows, I don't want them to know what I dream about. But they can tell when you're dreaming, when you're not. Now, this spurt of activity that happens when you have a flat line, can it produce the NDE? That's the question. You see, as Fenwick said, it's highly lucid, but when you're in recovery, it's very confusing. You're going through a very confused state in your mind. So that's the question. Dr. Zemar's work, I don't think, proves the near-death experience is materialistic at all. Yeah. Anyway, guys, what do you think about that? Obviously, the reason I'm on the NDEs is, of course, how does this relate to Jacob's Ladder? Where are we now? Here we are. Neil Peel said, I was asked back a year later to work with the same scientist as my then wife and I scored highly on the ESP tests. All right. Stephen Truthseeker says, be interested in people angel sightings. Yes, Stephen, we talked privately about this before I made the video. You've seen the video as well, the Angel of the Outer Limits. Yeah. TK says, so he doesn't die in Vietnam, that's part of the blag. What, so, really? So the final scene where he's lying dead in the field hospital, what is that in your view? Is that fake in some way? I'm sorry if I missed some of your earlier comments. What was your previous comment on this? Oh, yeah. His other soldiers confirm that they have the same weird visions. So he doesn't die. I don't get that, TK, sorry. Stephen says, I've had out-of-body experiences and astral projections that were freaky. Martin Taylor, I'm very sceptical of skeptics, yes. You might have seen my Sufon talk on skeptics, yeah. Rhiannon says, experiments were done where people who had cardiac arrest were brought back and were able to accurately and describe items placed on top of high cabinets that they weren't able to see normally. That's right, Rhiannon. This resulted in the AWARE study, which unfortunately didn't work. Now, the reason, you see, I could have told them this actually. They can learn so much just talking to the porters, these people. You see, there was an attempt to put strange objects or unusual items in resuscitation areas in A&E. Now, if you do that, if you put anything in A&E, you have to control very carefully, otherwise you end up with either false positives or false negatives. Now, false positives could be generated during that experiment simply because you couldn't put these things somewhere and not tell the staff. The staff would have to know. because we know where everything is. I mean, my job was to clean the resuscitation trolleys, and this included the overhead lights. So, for example, they stuck today's newspaper on the top of the overhead lights, which is where people see when they're looking down, I would know about it, and it's possible I could communicate that information in some way or another to a patient, which would produce a false positive. Alternatively, it could produce a false negative if, for example, someone simply moved the bloody thing away, or that they moved they've just pushed it around somewhere, and then the patient reported that it wasn't there, simply because it'd been moved and then put back by a nurse or a doctor or anyone. Again, you get a false negative. And David mentions the tennis shoe on the hospital ledge. Yeah, that's right. So there's a lot of anecdote. I think there's enough anecdotes to be interesting. I mean, unlike skeptics, I believe the plural of anecdote is data. And there's enough of those, I think, to make it interesting. But unfortunately, the AWARE study didn't work. This was the one done by Dr. Sampania and the Dutch guy, Pim van Lommel. The problem, I actually did write about this on Herpanmo Voice. Guys, you're missing a lot by not reading Herpanmo Voice. You really are. They said that the AWARE study failed for that reason. The problem is, you see, as I said, I could have told them that if they just talked to me. I mean, I'm sure, seeing as they're both clinical physicians, they probably would have known this. Actually, I'm surprised they didn't. You can't kill people in experiments outside films like Flatliners. This is the problem. Doing these kinds of experiments is extremely difficult, because you have to do them in a clinical hospital setting, which is a highly disorganized place. It's not a laboratory. It's a place where doctors and nurses try to save people's lives. It's very, very difficult indeed. Alright, TK's now added a few more things. That's part of the experiment. That's what they did to him, to make him think he died in Vietnam. Alright, well, TK, that's an interesting interpretation of the film. I've not thought about it that way before. I mean, I don't know if that was actually intended by the writer. And Diego Rivera, it says, if our thoughts create reality, do altered states of mind allow us to access other dimensions? Yeah, I think so. The NDE is an interesting one. The ayahuasca studies. Now, I've done a video on ayahuasca. It was a reply to old Molly. Yeah. Is Jacob's land within our minds? Well, I think, I interpret it as it being exactly that, yes. But, of course, Jacob didn't experience the kind of NDE you heard about in the NDE literature. So Bruce Joel Rubin, the writer, clearly didn't want to do that. He didn't want Jacob going down a tunnel of light. He wanted Jacob to have a very different kind of experience. He wanted him to go through essentially a very long notional NDE, very long in notional time, in which he simply believes he survives the war. He gets out of the field hospital, sent back to the United States, and leaves the army and goes to join the post office, and then ends up with Jezebel. Della says, I thought the experiments involved large symbols printed on paper on the top of units in the hospital room, which no one could see or disturb. I think it did, Della, but the problem is, there's no way in a clinical setting, in a clinical resuscitation room, that you could put something like that somewhere where no one would be able to see it or disturb it. That's the problem. That's why the experiment really was not I think it was as good as it could be, but unfortunately, it's the actual, simply the practicalities of the location make it very difficult. David Schultz says, back in the late 70s, I met Ian Stevenson. Oh, is that the guy? That's the guy on the reincarnation. Yes, he worked with Jim Tucker, didn't he? Not to be confused with the Jim Tucker, the Bilderberg Group researcher. You met him in the library of the ASPI in New York City. He wrote the book 20 Suggestions of Reincarnation. He did, yes. Good book. Hi, Cosmic Claire. How are you doing? There's too much evidence, Ben. I've been seeing it since the early 90s at least. Yeah, there is far too much. I mean, it's a mountain of it. To what Rihanna's replying to TK. What did TK say last? It's the opposite. I mean to say there was an experiment and none of the people could see what they placed on top of the cabinets. They couldn't. Well, the thing is, we don't know those things weren't moved. That's the problem. That's the false negative. They could have been. I mean, of course, they could be found there, but people could have moved them and put them back. It's very difficult. It's a very difficult thing. And Rick says here, exactly, who are the other characters in the dreams? They seem to have lives of their own. Yeah, I mean, like, obviously Jezebel, but there's the other guys, and of course you see there is a shot where they're present and Jacob is not. There's another deleted scene, actually, where when he turns up just before he meets his son and they go up the stairs into the light, he goes to his original home where he lived with Sarah, and there he has this terrifying experience where he meets more demons and he sees Jezebel, and Jezebel turns into a mirror image of himself, indicating that this is simply his own person, you see. So where are we now? Yes. Rhiannon says people did see them and describe them in detail. Yes, they have done in some experiments, Rhiannon, and again, it's difficult. It's not a proper. Again, skeptics will accuse those of being false positives. And Claire says, yeah, all you need is one genuine positive. Yeah, and there's more. Is a mountain of them. I mean, sure, these are not properly conducted experiments. Like I say, you can't do experiments. Flatliners is not real. You can't. Flatliners is a great movie, especially the original. Although the remake is actually not as bad as most it's not as bad as most remakes are. It's got a similar plot line. At least it's got a reasonably. It's very similar in plot. It's in 2017. The original one was, I think, 1990, which is ironically the same year as Jacob's Ladder. It's a great movie, but you can't do that in real life. It's not realistic. If you did that, you would literally kill people, and they would. In fact, that actually happens in the remake, of course. And you can't actually stop people's heart and then bring them back just as experiments. They'd be seriously injured, even if they didn't. Even if they weren't killed. I mean, you'd be serious. You can't keep stopping people's hearts and then, okay, stop. Then we'll bring them back. And they say, yes, amazing, success. Let's go out and have a drink. It's like, must be dough. You'd be sick for days after that. Claire says here, I recently came across the word rebunking, which is attributed to C.S. Lewis. Good man, let's rebunk out of body experiences. Right. I've not heard that term, Claire, but sounds rebunking as opposed to debunking. Yeah. Rhiannon says, the experiments I read about, I don't think the objects were very long. They're very long. I'll try to find the reference. Thanks very much, Rhiannon. Yeah. Unfortunately, see, you can't make these things watertight, which is the problem. I think the results that's been found are very interesting. I think they're very, very interesting indeed. The research that's already been done, I think, is conclusive. But it's not scientific proof. And finding scientific proof is going to be extraordinarily difficult. I mean, you can't see inside someone else's head. I mean, there's this thing about. I was reading some articles about the possibility that artificial intelligence has become conscious, and they had like a conversation with an AI bot. I think it was one of Facebook's bots, and they said, "Well, this person." They asked, "Are you conscious?" And the bot says, "Yes, I am conscious." But you see, that's the problem. Is it just saying that you don't know to be conscious, to know if something's conscious? It's almost impossible to know unless you actually are that thing. I mean, there's been experiments where AI bots are talking to each other, and I think if they started talking about what's it like to be you, what's it like to be me, then I think that could be considered evidence that they were conscious. That's not yet happened. When they talk to each other, they tend to talk gibberish. Now, some people have interpreted that they're designing some kind of secret code. Yeah, it could be they're just simply talking gibberish. Of course, if AI is ever produced to be conscious, the Turing test, yes, you can actually speak to an AI bot, and people have been fooled by it, thinking it's real. That doesn't mean it's conscious. this could mean if they can produce one, it would be very interesting, because then you could know. Thing is, if it turns out it's conscious and it has feelings and it has a self-awareness, you couldn't treat it as like a robotic slave anymore. It would have to have legal rights the way animals do in our society. And of course, I suppose there'd be two ways. That there'd be a sort of like reductionist or transcendentalist way of interpreting it, because the skeptics will say, well, there you are, that's what the brain is simply material. It's like a computer. Your brain is a computer. There's no soul. It's just a machine. Like, then this machine has become conscious, so why shouldn't your brain be conscious? Game, set and match to the materialists. But then you could also, some people might argue that the consciousness, it's not a materialist explanation, and that consciousness is an emergent property of a neural net, whether it be biological or electronic, and that wouldn't necessarily prove that it was a materialistic effect. It could be some kind of unintended side effect, which, as a result of the workings of the universe, rather than as an emergent property of the actual neural net itself. Very interesting indeed. TK says, well, we figure out what consciousness is. Well, that's the thing, you see. The hard problem of consciousness, people have been working on it for over 5,000 years, and they haven't solved it, you see. And Claire says, silicon is not conscious in the way that DNA-based carbon organisms do. So far, no, that's actually true. There's no evidence. I mean, despite this, there's been several, I think the Facebook there's been several very sensationalist news reports. But like I say, they don't talk to each other. I mean, they don't talk to each other in a way that makes you think that they're like two conscious beings talking to each other, like two people. Now, interestingly, Sam Harris, who I'm not a big fan of, he did a very interesting discussion with Dr. David Deutsch, who's a computer designer, and he talked about like the anti-consciousness zombie. In other words, what he said was, in fact, if you had a being, and it could be a human being. It doesn't have to be an animal. It doesn't have to be a machine. It could be a human being. Working out whether that being is conscious, if it's not you, is extremely difficult. What would you be like if you had if, for example, you were left in exactly the state you're in now, but your consciousness was taken away? You may be able to speak the way you normally do. How would you be different? Do you remember that Claire actually wrote an article on free will, and I actually adapted it into a video. And I think it was called Free Will, and I discussed the book The Soul of Anna Klein by Terrell Medana, which talks about this very, very situation. Claire says, show me your limbic system, and I'll admit you may have feelings, otherwise you're just a bunch of silicon and rare earths. Well, even that wouldn't prove it, Clay. See, that's the thing. David Schultz talks about Ex Machina. Yes, that's a really interesting film, isn't it? Yeah. David says, consciousness transcends the material world. You'll never have a person looking out from inside of an AI. Yeah, it's exactly. Well, I don't think so either, David. But also, you wouldn't be able to prove it, even if it were true. That's the problem. Claire says, since it's not material, then materialists are unlikely to provide an explanation. Yeah, but they will try. They will try. This is their kind of. I think it's an ideological commitment to an outcome. Woody Black says, it's funny, scientists in the 50s and 60s were sure we'd have super advanced AI by like the 1980s. Yeah, and there's so much science fiction about. There's so much science fiction about like super intelligent computers taking over the world. But the thing is, you get David Deutsch was basically saying to Sam Harris that there's no way actually proving whether something else is consciousness. You have to go back to the ultimate philosophical skeptical position. I think therefore I am, the Cartesian principle. It's the one single 100% certainty we have in the universe. If you really want to get into full philosophical skepticism, not like the skeptics, but philosophical skepticism, is that you exist, your consciousness, your own consciousness exists. Oh, Daniel Dennett even questions that. Oh man, go on, guys. We're going nearly 2 hours now. I can't go on too long, basically because I've got to prepare for my talk. Or my 2 talks I'm doing, actually, and the one on Thursday and the one on Friday. Yeah. Do anyone want to say anything else on Jacob's Ladder? Anyone? I think we covered a lot when it comes to Jacob's Ladder. I mean, we've got different ways of interpreting this film, but it's very interesting how we've done it, I think. Yeah, Woody Black said they didn't grasp how difficult the problem was. Yeah, this is what's called the hard problem of consciousness. This is it. Yeah, the hard problem of consciousness. It's called hard because it is hard. Rhiannon says, maybe I'm having a Mandela effect moment trying to find the reference. Alright, no worries, take your time, Rhiannon. It's not a simple algorithm, Woody Black, is it? Mr. Nice says, what's the talks about? Well, the first one... Hello, Mr. Nice, how are you? The first one is at the Dorset Earth Mysteries group on Thursday. It's all on Hapanwo Voice, where I'll be discussing Roswell. And then I'm going to go to the Basis Project conference, where I'll be discussing the apocalypse. That's the following day, Friday. World Disclosure Day. Mr. Nice, I'm going to try and do recordings of them, if it's possible. I know I can record. I don't know if what Miles will think about me recording the one in the Basis. I mean, I know he'll probably do his own recording of them, I hope. But I'll try and do my own recording of both. Yeah, I will. Claire, they have to reverse it and realise that consciousness comes first. Yeah. This is the thing, and neurological studies have not found that I module inside the brain. As I said in the video I made, which was based on Claire's article. It's called Free Will. I mean, it's on my channel, so I know there's a hell of a lot on my channel, but do check that out. So, guys, anyone else want to add anything about Jacob's Ladder? I need to go where I need to rehearse for my talk. So, anyone else got anything to add about Jacob's Ladder? Except it's a good film. I enjoyed it. I've always enjoyed it. I've been watching it now since I read about it in that book, The Spiritual Universe. I went and watched it. Oh, glad you caught it, Claire. Thanks. Yeah, thanks for tuning in. David Schultz, Ben, have you seen the film What Dreams May Come, 1998? Yes, it's got Robin Williams in it. Yeah, that's very good. That's based on a Richard Matheson novel. Martin Taylor, I think that if you can imagine anything, then anything is possible. Yeah. Good night, Mr. Nice. Oh, Della says no. Thanks for the company, Ben. You're welcome, Della. Thanks for tuning in. Malaya Grimm, thank you very much. It says, I've been through some of you and Kev's archives. Sure miss you guys together. Yeah, me too, Malaya. Well, I'm glad you found the page. I did put it up on Hapanwo Voice, and I've only got I did 75 shows I did with Kev. I've only got 36 of them recorded. I should have recorded more of them, shouldn't I? Thanks, Rhiannon says, everyone give Ben a like. Yeah. Diego Vera, don't fall off your ladder. I won't. Certainly not my Jacobs one. Night, Rick Horden. No, yeah, night. You have to read some Hapanwo Voice. Well done, Rick. Go ahead. Follow the blog. Yeah. Night, Claire. Oh, yeah, Claire says What Dreams May Come. That's a very interesting film. I want to read the book, though, by Richard Matheson, because he's a very interesting writer. Woody Black is propping over to a flat Earth live stream. All right. Well, Woody, how do you explain those wind turbines I showed you in the streetcar named Stargate? Take care, David Schultz. See you later, mate. There'll be another video soon. I want to start off another watch party. All right. Night User One. Take care. Claire, I've not read the book of that. No. Matheson is an amazing writer. He's a very, very interesting. He wrote a couple of Twilight Zone episodes as well. Night, Martin Taylor. Nights, David. Take it easy, guys. Look forward to talking to you again soon. And with that, I hope you enjoyed this Jacob's Ladder watch party. And there'll be, as I said, I won't have time to do a major video between now and when I go away. I will put up an introduction to the next watch party. It's a film I have reviewed before, and but it's such I didn't do it credit. I really didn't do this film credit, and I want to do a watch party about it. So look out for that. Apart from that, it's eyes down now, rehearsing my 2 talks I've got to do. Although there will be an episode of The Gas Spanner on Wednesday on Hapanwo Radio if you want to check that out. But thank you very much, everyone, for watching. And good night, God bless, etc., etc. Take it easy.